The Bearcats are back in the top 25, and they are here to stay.
You are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bearcats. My name is Jeff Carr, and I'm all Cincinnati all the time. I have been a season ticket holder for Cincinnati football for 7 seasons now, and I've also worked in multiple athletic departments in the media relations department there. I love these Bearcats. Locked On Bearcats is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Bearcats, every single day. And on today's podcast, KenPom has its preseason predictions out, and it's cautiously optimistic about the Bearcats. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. In just a few minutes, though, we will look at just how good a day the defense had on Saturday. But we are beginning by celebrating the return to the AP Top 25. That's all on today's podcast, brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Cincinnati is back in the top 25 of the AP poll, number 24. This week, your Bearcats are back, and I could not be more excited. I really thought they would get there after the Iowa State win, but it's like Chad Brendel said last week with us, that they literally had no votes to that point, so going from no votes to top 25 would have been a heck of a leap. And they were at like 26. They were just waiting for somebody to fall out, and fall they did, because Penn State lost, Florida State lost. There were a bunch of bad performances there that the Bearcats were able to take advantage of after they took care of business against UCF. And I think that this is important for multiple different reasons. I don't think that they're going anywhere. I think that they will remain in the top 25 for the rest of the year. Now, how high that gets, if that gets into a college football playoff conversation, that's way ahead of ourselves right now. They have a gauntlet coming up in the Big 12, but I think with a couple of those key wins, they will remain in the top 25 for the rest of this season. And I foresee them not losing too many games to knock themselves back out, because think about who they still have left. They still have Utah left. They still have BYU left. Both those teams are ahead of them in the rankings, and Arizona is a very strong team too, although they did fall out of the top 25. I think I saw that. But they should be able to beat Arizona. And then TCU later on in the year is not as good of a win as it used to be, but that's still a good program to beat. And I think that the Bearcats got a good shot there. So all of those wins are really, or all of those games, whether win or lose, are going to be good for their resume. And I think that they stay. But it's also surprising, right? Like, be honest with me. Jump into the comment section, let me know, because I would be lying if I told you that I expected this team to jump into the top 25 at some point this year. I really do, because I didn't know who they were. I was hoping that Scott Satterfield was going to show me something. I was hoping that Brendan Sorsby was going to show me something. I was hoping that that could happen. But if you were to ask me what I thought my realistic thoughts were on how 2025 was going to go for the Bearcats, top 25 was not part of the equation. But here they are, number 24, and I think we're just getting started. Speaking of, realistic expectations and surprising people, I was looking at K Ford back at their preseason expectations of the Bearcats, and they said the realistic expectation for the Bearcats was to win 4 conference games. If they beat Oklahoma State this Saturday, they've hit that. That's how surprising they've been. In fact, K Ford gave them a 0% chance to go 9-0, which granted they still have a gauntlet left, and that's probably not going to happen. But they only gave them a 1% chance to be 8-1, a 4% chance to be 7-2. This is all in conference play, by the way. The 9 conference games that they play. So 1% chance to be 8-1, 4% chance to be 7-2. And only a 14% chance to be 6-3. I know that what is left on the schedule past Oklahoma State is tough, but I still think they get some wins in there. I don't think they're losing all of those games. Like if you were to be the most pessimistic Bearcats fan right now, I think that you would say they still go 5-4. They still beat Oklahoma State. They still beat TCU. And maybe they just go through a really tough time and they lose to both Utah schools and to Arizona. Like, maybe, but at the same time, I'm not buying that. I think they get some more wins in there. And I think it's impressive on how they've done this because it's all about the offense, right? Like we've had questions about this offense. They flashed some good things early on in 2024, and then they went to sleep. And then I don't know where they went. They just disappeared in the second half of the season. They're doing this whole impressive thing again, and hopefully they continue that because their offense is their key to their success. Only Texas Tech has a better scoring offense in the conference. The Bearcats have the second best scoring offense in the Big 12. And sure, that number's propped up because of the 70 points against Northwestern State, but the number is propped up for everybody else too, because that's including all of their mamby-pamby schools that they had on their schedules. It's not as if UC was the only team to play a bad school that they just beat the crap out of. Other schools do that too. They're called money games. People make those on this or put those on the schedule so that they get an easy win and prop up their resume a little bit. But the Bearcats are the second best scoring offense in the Big 12. Plus, no team in the Big 12 has a better pass efficiency rating. Something that it's on NCAA.com. Like when they look at the statistics, they consider, passing yardage, passing touchdowns, things like that, as opposed to pass attempts. They take it all into account. And UC is in the top 10 of that in the country, and no team in the Big 12 is better than them at that. Plus, and I'll keep hitting on this point, and I know they didn't have the best day against UCF. They looked a little bit exposed, and maybe that's a good thing for their film, and they can keep getting better. But this offensive line is just ridiculous. One sack still. I mean, UCF got a little bit of pressure, but part of that was they got some pressure and Brendan Sorsby got away from it, or Brendan Sorsby was able to stand in the pocket, take a hit, and make a play anyway. So credit to him on that. But there's still only one sack that they've allowed all year long. No other team in the country is better than them at that. I mean, they would have had to have allowed 0 sacks. So, yeah, not happening. Plus, and this is another thing. So, offensive line, as far as giving up sacks, is just about perfect. And then the offense as a whole in the red zone is perfect. Every trip they've made to the red zone, they've gotten points out of it. In only 6 of their trips, they made 25 trips. Only 6 of them are field goals. It is impressive to see what they're doing right now. Sorry, 24 trips. 24 trips, 6 field goals, 18 touchdowns. 9 passing, 9 rushing. Talk about balance on that one. But the red zone offense is perfect. So the offense has been phenomenal. But then when you look at the defensive side of the ball and how they got to this point where they're number 24 in the country and it feels like they're only getting started, you look at the defense. And the defense, like if you look at the holistic numbers, isn't that amazing. They give up a lot of yards. They're on the field a lot, all this other stuff. But they limit the red zone. Where their red zone offense is perfect, their red zone defense is pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. As far as Big 12 schools go, only BYU, Utah, and Texas Tech have allowed fewer red zone scores. So they're still in the top group there, at least as far as the conference is concerned. So I'm looking at all of this and I'm saying, yeah, number 24 is great, and I'm excited to see this, but they aren't done, and they're not going anywhere. I see that ranking climbing. I don't know how high, but I don't think it falls below 25. It's so great to see that this team is just surprising so much, and I think they're only going to keep getting better in that ranking. But speaking of red zone defense, and speaking of defense as a whole, I did not give them enough credit for their performance on Saturday. So let's fix that coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is all about Jeff Caldwell, the 2 touchdowns that he had, whether it was the one where he breaks behind the coverage of UCF and he's wide open and just sees the ball fall into his hands as he walks into the end zone for an easy score, or his second touchdown in which he was fighting through an obvious pass interference call that was not made, and he still caught the ball in the end zone for a touchdown. Jeff Caldwell is awesome because when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you for making Locked On Bearcats part of your everyday routine and your first listen. If you're not a Locked On Bearcats everydayer, make sure you hit that subscribe button right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. We're on all of them out there, so make sure you check us out today. We're free and available everywhere you get your podcast. All right, so the Bearcats defense showed up on Saturday. I talked a lot in the post-game show about just how it was kind of a vanilla game plan on both sides of the ball. There weren't a lot of blitzes that were called on the defensive side, but there were a lot of good performances. The Pro Football Focus grades came out for the Bearcats defense, and they had 9 guys with a 70 grade or better. And Logan Wilson led the crew. He had a good day. There was that one play where he made the pass interference over on the near sideline, or at least from where I'm sitting, over on the Bearcats sideline anyway, that was pretty egregious. It was a pretty obvious pass interference call. But other than that play, he kept everything quiet because I didn't really feel like I was yelling his name a whole lot, because it feels like sometimes, you're yelling like, come on, Jaquan Sinks, what are you doing? Trey Gola-Collard, come on, man. Although he had a good day too. He had I think his Pro Football Focus grade was a 72 for Trey Gola-Collard, but overall, 73.8 for Trey Gola-Collard. But overall, it was a pretty good day for the defensive backfield, for the linebackers and all that other stuff. And I'm sure that, the rebuttal, the quick answer to that was, congrats. The defense had a good day against a third-string quarterback. And you're right. They played a third-string quarterback. But as favorable as the matchup was, these guys were still on the field for like 40 minutes. UCF had the ball for 39 minutes and 44 seconds. Part of that was getting off the field on third down, which the Bearcats do need to be better at. But the other part of it was UCF couldn't do a thing when they got close to the red zone. I mean, they didn't have too many red zone trips as it were, but it felt like every time they got close, the Bearcats tightened things up and pushed them back. I think in particular, it felt like there was this one drive, and I think it was in the first half, that UCF had the ball and they got down past the 50-yard line. They had the ball for like 9 minutes, and that drive still ended up in a punt because of how good the defense played on Saturday. I mean, you give up 11 points. Obviously, it's a good day for the defense, but it was interesting to see just how good they played, because we give this defensive backfield a lot of criticism, and a lot of it's justified. It feels like, there are times where teams sort of carve them up. I mean, Jalen Daniels really did that. Rocco Becht had a pretty good day when you look at his specific stat line in that Iowa State game. But on the whole, they're able to limit things when they have to. And while they're not turning any heads, like they're not a top scoring defense or something like that, they do limit things when they have to. And I was impressed with what we saw, and the Pro Football Focus grades really bear that out. I mean, Jonathan Thompson had a nice day. The linebacking core in this game really did a good job. And I felt like it was a conservative game plan when it came to Jake Golday. I felt like I didn't see him blitzing as much. He was doing a whole lot more in the secondary level, covering and things like that. But he still made the plays when they needed him to. But when you look at the other guys, Brian Sims and Jonathan Thompson, and they didn't give a good grade for some reason to Simeon Coleman. But I think that Simeon Coleman had a couple of really good plays in there as well. The linebacking core looked good, but the defensive backfield, I mentioned Logan Wilson led the team with a 77.5 grade, But you also have Christian Harrison at 72.6, Tregola Collard at 73.8. It was great to see those guys have good days. So for me, like I was happy to see that because we criticized this defensive backfield a lot, but they were able to make the plays when they needed to. And there were certainly moments where it seemed as though UCF had an opportunity, and you just chalk it up to the fact that they're playing a third string quarterback, Cam Fancher, who just didn't seem to have a chance. I get it. He completed a lot of passes, but there were a lot of dink and dunk passes. And this Bearcats secondary, which by the way, if you're a Bearcats and a Bengals fan and you watch the Bengals game on Sunday, you appreciate just how good the tackling was for the Bearcats on Saturday. Yeah, I mean, I did. The Bearcats were really good at tackling. It's good to see because also last year that was a problem. But the way that this has really moved forward for this defensive backfield is good. Now, likewise, there's an opportunity here because it was not so good a day for the defensive line. And I understand, and part of this was the vanilla game plan where it was like, all right, defensive line gives the pressure, and then we lay back, 7 or 8 guys for the most part. Kind of felt like they were rushing 3 a lot and maybe rushing 4, but for the most part, they were rushing the minimum on most plays. And there wasn't a lot of pressure to go around. I mean, you just did not see a good day, and Pro Football Focus grades bear that out. Micah Coleman had a 56. CJ McCray got a 60, so a little bit better. And Rob Jackson was the lowest on the defensive line, on the defense period, as far as Pro Football Focus grades. He was at a 44.7. And now the whole reason that I'm talking about Pro Football Focus, if you're wondering about that, like I look at Pro Football Focus grades and I say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 100, how was the guy's day? What value did he bring to the team? And if I didn't hear his name a lot, I feel like these grades really helped me out. And when you don't hear a guy's name a lot on defense, that means he wasn't really doing a whole lot on the impact side of things. And we weren't hearing these guys' names very much. The defensive line seemed like they were pretty well handled by that UCF offensive line. And honestly, on the season, they've not been very good at bringing pressure. I mean, they are ranked 130th nationally as far as Pro Football Focus. As a group, when it comes to pass rush, they are 130th nationally with a 59.6 overall pass rush grade. It's not good, right? That's not good. That's got to get better. Part of that could just be, are they going to draw up more blitzes and put more pressure on opposing quarterbacks, or are they just going to sit back in this soft zone and keep everything in front of us? Because now through 6 games, that seems to be who they are. That seems to be their identity. And so it would be a bit of a deviation for them to start drawing up blitzes, for Tyson Veit to really start putting up the pressure when it comes to these blitzing calls. But kind of feel like they need to consider that because they're just not getting that kind of pressure with their defensive line. That's going to be one of the areas of concern for me. And I thought early on, it looked like that was trending in the right direction early on this season, but it's sort of fallen back these last couple of weeks. Defensive line hasn't been that impressive. And, somewhere in the middle of all of these grades and not on the low or on the high side was Dante Corleone. He was fine. It feels like with this defensive line and how they've been playing here recently, they need Dante Corleone to be good to great, not just fine. And that's a lot of pressure on a dude that's been dealing with a lot of injuries. And he's had a nice long career here at Cincinnati, and he's got a good career ahead of him, I think, in the pros. It's just, how healthy is he going to be? But this defensive line needs to step up, and that's going to be the area of concern for me as we move into Oklahoma State. Like, how do they play? Is this just going to constantly be a thing where the Bearcats set back in zone? They allow 4 yards here. They allow 5 yards here. They tighten up when they get closer to the red zone, and then that's just who they are. That might be okay against Oklahoma State. I don't know how good that's going to be against Utah and Arizona and BYU. That's going to be a tough thing. We'll have to see how that continues to trend up. But overall, good day for the defense on Saturday. Love to see it. Let's shift gears here though, because coming up next, KenPom came out with its preseason predictions for the basketball season, and they're cautiously optimistic about the Bearcats. There's still time to take advantage of this great offer on FanDuel for the first $5 wager that gets you $300 in bonus bets. Your first winning $5 wager, that is. You got to go check it out today. And looking at the early lines for this Bearcats Cowboys, Oklahoma State Cowboys game coming up this Saturday, it's, man, I cannot believe the line is where it is. Currently, the Bearcats are favored by 21.5 points. That's a big margin. I mean, that makes me sweat a little bit because, I mean, I feel good about the Bearcats getting a win and all, but to win by more than 3 scores on the road? I mean, Oklahoma State doesn't look that good, but man, are they really that bad? Is it really going to be that bad? Man, it's a bad way. They're in Stillwater. You got to check out FanDuel today. Like I said, new users can place a $5 wager, and if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. Download that FanDuel app today. And speaking of things you need to do today, you got to get your finances in order. And Monarch Money is here to help because I know I've been there. When it comes to money, it's just like, yeah, that's going to work out, right? Like, I mean, we're fine, right? Spending's okay. And then you look on Monarch Money and no, you'll find out it's not because what on earth just happened? I spend way too much money at Taco Bell. And Monarch Money helped me find that out. Monarch Money helps you track your spending. You can set spending limits and you can see your accounts all on one screen. Whether it's your debit accounts, your credit accounts, or even your investment accounts, you can find it all at monarchmoney.com. If you sign up today and you use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, you'll get half off your first year. You can begin financially thriving today with Monarch Money because you can set your goals and you can reach them. It's so easy with Monarch Money. Like I said, go to monarchmoney.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege to get half off your first year. Seriously, this is a key tool to really thriving with your money. And start now. Don't wait for some New Year's resolution. Start now at monarchmoney.com and use that promo code LOCKEDONCollege. I encourage you to keep the conversation going with me after the show over on Twitter and on TikTok at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. You can also find me on Instagram. Just flip my Twitter and TikTok username to Carr Jeff, so CARRJEFFF. And then you follow the show on Twitter at LO_Bearcats and on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bearcats, all one word. And I am perplexed. I just mentioned that when it comes to FanDuel, like the line for the Bearcats going to Stillwater and facing Oklahoma State, the Bearcats are laying 21.5. All week long, I'm going to keep an eye on that one because wow, that is some respect for the Bearcats. And that is some shade being thrown at Oklahoma State. We're definitely gonna have Cody Stovall from Locked On Oklahoma State on the show with us here in a couple of days to break down, the matchup between the two teams and a little bit of a schedule change. Normally on Tuesdays we have Chad Brendel. Chad Brendel will be joining us on Thursday, and then we'll have Russ Heltman on Friday, really getting you set for this game. It's gonna be homecoming for Oklahoma State, and the Bearcats are favored by more than 3 scores. That's a lot. Anyway, let's get to some basketball because I can't wait for basketball season, man. It's going to be so much fun. I feel like this new crew that Wes Miller has coming in, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. There's going to be some good shooting guys, got to have some good defense. KenPom does like the Bearcats defense. They're pretty high, at least on the projection side of things for where the Bearcats defense will be on the court this year. They're not sure about the offensive efficiency, but that's probably going to be the big question mark, right? That's been the big question mark for the entire Wes Miller era. But with these new guys coming in, some of them are supposed to be pretty good shooters, but a lot of them are unknowns when it comes to that, hopefuls, but not really projectables. So with that, KenPom actually has a nice prediction for UC. KenPom has UC going 20-11 this season. That puts them squarely on the bubble. And based on some of the wins that they have, the Bearcats getting on the year, I think that would put their resume at the point where you would expect them to make the tournament. I don't think that this would be a situation where they would be one of the first four out. I think more likely this would be a team that is an at large. Now, maybe are they a 9 seed? Are they a 10 seed with this particular record? Probably so. But it's like you take that after having not been in the tournament for as long as the Bearcats have. I think I would take that. And so looking at this record here, they project their non-conference losses to be Louisville, Georgia, and Clemson. But they also project them to beat Xavier, which would be a good win. And they would beat Dayton, which would be a pretty good win. And then you get into conference play, and they have them beating West Virginia, beating UCF. Looks West Virginia and UCF both on the road there. So those would be good wins for your resume. Have them losing to Iowa State, but that's a close one. It's a toss-up. They have that like a 50% chance there. So they're not really sure how that one's going to go. Have them losing to Arizona on the road. The losses both to Houston, lost to Kansas away, lost to Texas Tech away. But beating BYU and TCU, like there's definitely some good wins that would pump up the resume to the point that I think that as long as they aren't like one and done in the Big 12 tournament, I think we see UC, according to KenPom's projections, make the tournament. Now, I will say this, and I think that, whoever it was at KenPom, or if it was, KenPom himself, they probably say that they are a little bit unsure as to how this UC team is going to be. And it's nice to see that even on the unsure side of things, they're still bullish about UC's chances because they see this entirely new roster other than Day Thomas. And they say that they like what they see and they think that it's going to gel. They think it's going to work out. Defensive side of things, like right now, they have them projected as the 5th best defense in the country. Even if they're anywhere near that, it feels like their offense just has to be a little bit better than it was last year. And they're going to be a really good ball club. I'm excited to see how this team really works because I'm rooting for this to just go crazy. Are they going to win the conference? Probably not. Houston is just really stinking good. And if it ain't Houston, Texas Tech is really stinking good too. And we're talking about arguably the best conference in college basketball. This is not the same situation as football, where it's clear that the SEC and the Big Ten have a big gap between them and the next conference. I think the Big 12 has the argument for being that next conference, but still there's a gap between them and the Big 2. When it comes to basketball, though, Big 12, man, they've got an argument to be better than the SEC, better than the ACC, better than anybody. But with that being said, that means that the competition is ridiculous. So when you get a conference win, your resume is just awesome. And when you get a conference loss, that's not as bad a thing as it was when the Bearcats were in the American. So I think that there's an understandable uncertainty surrounding projections for this team. But the fact that KenPom is bullish on them, the fact that KenPom has them at 20 wins gives me a lot of hope. And it gives me a lot of excitement in believing that this team can make it to the tournament. Because this kind of feels like the year. And we talked a couple of weeks ago with Russ Heltman on one of his first appearances here with us, that it feels like this is a make or break year for Wes Miller. And nobody's saying they dislike the guy. Like, it seems as though he's a very likable guy, very good at recruiting, very good at putting together talented teams. It's just we haven't seen them gel yet. We haven't seen them develop. We haven't seen them hit their potential. And so with that, you do question Wes Miller a little bit. So he's coming into this year, and he'd be the first one to say it too. Like, he's got to succeed. It's time to put up or shut up, And at least, according to KenPom, looks like they got a good chance to put up. And I'm excited to see how that all goes for Bearcats basketball. We're going to be covering that quite extensively this year. I love college basketball. Low-key, a little bit more of a basketball fan than a football fan. I know that's weird. I know everybody loves football the most, but love me some basketball, man. It's really hard to beat good college basketball, and it feels like the Bearcats have a chance to be some good college basketball. But make sure you are subscribed here to the channel. Make sure that you comment, that you like. Really helps out the algorithm, helps the Bearcats fans find us more easily. Love talking Bearcats athletics with you. Would love to talk Bearcats athletics with everyone as well. Make sure you tell your friends and tell your family you got a daily spot for some Bearcats talk. And thanks for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen. Make sure for your second listen, you check out Locked On Big 12. Drake Toll breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championships to every game in between. Find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks again, and I'll see you tomorrow.